Aloha and welcome to Capital Connection with your host, Senator Angus McKelvey. I'm your moderator, Tom Blackburn Rodriguez. Our guest today is Theo Morrison. Theo is a longtime Lahaina resident and advocate for the restoration of historic buildings and the preservation of Maui history. She has experienced the impact of the Lahaina wildfire firsthand and has intimate knowledge of Lahaina's cultural and historical treasures. She has been the executive director of the Lahaina Restoration Foundation for the past 15 years. We deeply appreciate her willingness to be with us on the air this morning. And now your host of Capital Connection, Senator Angus McKelvey.
Aloha, everybody, and thank you, Tom, and thank you so much, Theo, for joining us today on our show, and welcome to another episode of Capital Connection.
And Angus, there are several things you wanted to let the audience know that are coming up, resource fairs and that kind of thing. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yes, well, Maui Ola is having an Ohana Resource Fair. That's coming up Wednesday, today, 9/13, from 11 to 7 over at Lahaina Civic Center. We'll have Red Cross, FEMA, the unemployment from DLIR, Labor Industrial Relations, who also do DUA, disaster unemployment assistance, Project Vision Medical Care. There'll be translators there and more to help with communication. Then on Saturday, September 23rd, a big one will be the Filipino Resource Fair that's being put on by the Maui Filipino Chamber of Commerce. That, too, is at the Civic Center. It will have all sorts of different groups there. There'll be community services, crisis counseling programs, disaster unemployment assistance, language access, legal help will be there. Hawaii Filipino Lawyers Association will have a table with those looking for legal help that may have cultural challenges or, language barriers challenges. And then also, FEMA will be there as well as other entities to help those in our Filipino community be able to get the direct assistance they need.
Well, one thing interesting about FEMA I think people should be aware of is that if you have applied for FEMA and you've been denied or deemed ineligible, appeal the FEMA decision within 60 days of getting your FEMA letter. As I jokingly told our guest, this is a government agency and they tend to tell you no right away. So if you got
and a lot of people haven't even heard back originally. They're in the land of limbo. And I'm a little chagrined if hopefully this is not the only way to notify people through a letter, because one of the post offices is gone.
Well, there is, and we would want to tell people that the application process, you can dial 1-800-621-3362. That's 1-800-621-3362 for application assistance with FEMA. And they do have an online, www.disasterassistance.gov. But it is a good idea to go to these resource fairs and actually sit down with a real human being to talk about what your needs are. So if you have not heard back from FEMA, as the senator said, or you've been denied, go down there, file an appeal.
Yep, that's the best way to do it. Go down there with the denial letter in hand or on your phone. And walk through them with it. And
Senator, I notice also that there's news about the Red Cross. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I was going to actually have you fill us in on that.
Well, I'd be happy to do that. Not a problem. I'd like to let the audience know that there is a temporary emergency lodging program that is being conducted by the Red Cross, but the deadline to apply is September 15th. They're very specific, September 15th at 5 p.m., and that's with the Red Cross. They also have individual assistance. Besides housing, they have medical and mental health prescription assistance and more. So if you want to apply for emergency housing or other benefits, you can call 1-800-733-2767. That's 1-800-733-2767. Or go online to redcross.org. That's redcross.org. And remember that the deadline to enroll in temporary emergency lodging application is this Friday, September 15th. So If you haven't done that and you need emergency lodging, give them a call. They have resources for you.
Yep. And on a couple of websites that are really important. One is MauiRecovers.org. That is important for the reentry. It has the maps. I guess reservation system supposedly will be debuting today or tomorrow for people to be able to go in, and hopefully their insurance adjusters has been a real challenge in getting adjusters to come in and look so claims can be processed. So that's going to start up today or tomorrow, and hopefully the system will be able to handle everybody who's obviously anxious to get in and make some kind of assessment. But that's MauiRecovers.org, and MauiNuiStrong.com is like a central point of all the different resources we've discussed earlier, with links to websites and more.
So that's MauiNuiStrong.com. That's an excellent one to go to because it has all the information in one place for all assistance available. So, if you're looking around, you can't decide what to do or who to call, go to MauiNuiStrong.com and they can help you out. And Senator, I know your office staff is also on top of this. Your telephone number, 808-568-6070.
No, actually, our number is 808-586-6070.
586-60.
My apologies for that. I think it was a typo in transmission. However, website, Capital website, email address, sendmckelvey@capital.hawaii.gov. My staff is there to help triage your individual situation. So if you're having issues with the resource above or questions thereof, please reach out.
So again, that number, just to clarify, is 808-586-6070. Would be able to reach. Now, what if I don't live in your district, but I've got a question, or someone said, call this office. Will your staff still help me out?
Yes, of course. I mean, everybody's affected by the fire and what happened in Lahaina. I mean, it's just unfortunately, this bomb that went off is going to end up affecting all of us. So, questions, concerns, people might be, have concerns insofar as how their lives or businesses are affected and what can they expect, and, situations that come up. One real quickly, got one communication is, will my insurance rates go up now for fire in Maui, for my business and my home? Good question.
And
so that's something that we obviously with DCCA are one of the many things we're monitoring policy-wise on our end.
Senator, we know what happened in Florida. Several major insurers pulled out of Florida, so we want to watch that and make sure that insurance firms don't walk away.
Well, we were going to stand up a state captive anyway, and we were looking at using it as a reinsurance for condominiums, like Massachusetts has done. So maybe this is our solution. So that's a project I've been working on anyway. So I think it could be a possible solution for Lahaina and Maui in those particular areas. But anyway.
Senator Theo Morrison is in the studio with us this morning. It's great to see her. It's been a while. Good morning, Theo.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Angus, I think she's ready for a conversation between the two of you.
Well, don't go anywhere, Tom. It's a fireside chat, if you will, mind.
Bad reference.
The warm. Yeah, I just realized that. Sorry. Well, okay. Anyway, let me rephrase that. It's a friendly chat, talk story. But anyway, Theo, thank you so much for coming in and joining us today. And, but before all of this, you and I have known each other for forever, right?
1,000 years, yes.
1,000 years. My mom and you, of course, had a great relationship. It was like water and fire, but Lahaina got steam because of it. I mean, Lahaina moved forward because of the steam you guys produced. But, you worked with originally Lahaina Town Action Committee, and then you moved over to Lahaina Restoration Foundation.
Well, Lahaina bypass in between. Bypass now.
Of course. We're going to get to that later.
2 years.
But in that being said, for those who don't know what the Lahaina Restoration Foundation is and what it does, can you give us a brief 30,000-foot view of the organization, its mission, and its work?
Sure. Pre-fire or post-fire?
Start with pre and then post.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
so pre, what we basically the caretakers of the Lahaina Historic District, which is basically the commercial area of Lahaina from Shaw to Papala'au Street. And we ran 6 museums. We took care of the open space, the parks within that area. And we also reached out to people. So we did programs. We did the Hawaiian music series for 15 years on the front lawn of the Baldwin home. We did movies. We recently just started doing movies once a month in the old prison. We did night at the museum where families got to actually spend a night inside the Baldwin home. We did the Lahaina Quest program, which is like a camp program for kids in summer breaks. We did cultural classes at our taro patch, which is right across from the old former King's taro patch across from the Baldwin home. So we did lots and lots and lots of stuff. So now we are, all with the exception of Halipai at Lahaina Luna High School, which is one of the sites that we manage. With the exception of that, our buildings are either destroyed or severely damaged. Not to the point where we can't restore them, but they're not usable at the moment. So
that speaks for there's numerous buildings all over Lahaina. It's pretty much a lot of them are in that same bucket, if you will.
Correct.
Right now, first it looked like they were just totally destroyed, but now it looks like, hey, there might be, they might have actually fared better than was originally estimated. But obviously, that doesn't take away from everything that did get completely destroyed.
Theo, I have a question for you. Based on what your inventory is now of the buildings that are still standing, how do you see the history of Lahaina continuing to be preserved? You and I talked about this before we went on the air, that history is not lost. It's still there. What are your plans? What's your thinking of your group to be able to maintain that historical reference?
Well, what we lost were a lot of the physical reminders of history. But history never gets lost. It might get shuffled to the side or things like that, but it doesn't get lost. So it's those remnants of like the buildings and my favorite artifact was the Hawaiian flag that we had at the old Lahaina courthouse that flew over the monarchy. Mm-hmm. And
right.
I really thought for a long time that it would be preserved. But my son is a firefighter, and he had to keep telling me, "No, Mom, it's gone. It's all gone." So
see, that's the word I think we're looking for. It's not lost, but the artifact, the relic itself, is gone. So I mean, besides the museum, were there any other artifacts or sites to where that also applies that you know of?
Well, as soon as we can go in, no one can go in yet.
And totally. That's why the map and the reservation system, fingers crossed, will actually pan out. So
yeah.
My staff
is doing the training, the HAZWAPER training, so they'll be totally qualified to go in and look for any artifacts that we can find in the sites, like the old Lahaina courthouse. That was the Heritage Museum. It just had amazing amounts of really important Hawaiian artifacts, which we hope we'll be able to find, like they're made out of stone. We expect to find that, maybe some of the whaling artifacts, which were metal. But a lot of the wonderful things, like the flag, this huge piece of kapa that we had, we know those things are gone. So that's our, as soon as we can go in, as soon as all the training is done, that will be our primary focus. And the Smithsonian has already donated all the equipment we need, supplies we need to clean these artifacts, because we lost all that too. Not only did we lose our artifacts, we lost the ability to do everything, like photograph them, clean them, store them.
Yeah.
All that.
So Theo, you're almost going to have to conduct an archaeological search of these sites. So the way it sounds like with the Smithsonian and what have you, you're going to be out there with brushes and taking pictures and that kind of thing, almost like going back to the original sources of this material.
Correct. And then we have to find, so we've already drawn maps, hand-drawn maps of where we know the artifacts were. But for example, in the old Lahaina courthouse, those artifacts were on the second floor. They've fallen, although as the floors burned, they've fallen all the way down into the old jail at the bottom. So did they bounce around on that fall? Would they not be? But at least, so anyway, we have an initial map of where they should have been if they fall straight. So yes, it's a treasure.
Well, they're going to kind
treasure
of
hunt.
because the old jail is like a bucket, of if you will, a stone-lined bucket at the bottom. They'll all fall into that, into the jail, and they'll be somewhere within that well, right? I mean, you think, because it's like, because you know, because you see what I'm saying? It's a subterranean. Before it was a subterranean contained area. Everything collapses, hopefully inside and down in that area. You know, they'll be somewhere within there. Or
well, yeah, but they might have
hopefully
melted, burned, melted
Yeah,
with
I see
something
what you're
else,
saying,
smashed on the concrete. There's a variety of things that could have happened.
Theo, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind, and you know, I'd like to ask you this question respectfully. Can you share with us what your own personal experience was? Did you lose your home? How did you get out? You say your son was a firefighter. I know you had to be on pins and needles the whole time. But what was it like for you, a longtime resident, advocate for the history of Lahaina? How did the fire directly affect you?
Well, I actually wasn't on island on the day of the fire. I left the day before with the knowledge that there was a hurricane passing to the south that would have no effect on Maui. If I had known just the hurricane, if I had known it was coming, it was going to affect, you know, Maui, I wouldn't have left that day. But anyway, I was gone, and so I heard about it, and then I was actually in England, and it was amazing. It was top headlines all over the world, and my phone was just, I don't know how they found my cell phone, but everybody did, and you know, it was major news all over the world. People trying to get information and calling me to get that. So, but so I didn't really realize the magnitude. To me, it's the magnitude of this fire. I mean, having one building burn, two building burns. I mean, the museums burn. I mean that's a tragedy, but it's something that you can get your head around. Having everything burn is just, you know, it's just really hard to accept or to understand. And not only did our museums burn with all our artifacts, all our equipment. I've spent years gathering like event equipment. Anytime we needed to do an event, we had tables, we had chairs, we had everything. Mm-hmm. It's all gone, as well as all the supplies to clean all those artifacts, because we had a whole workshop that's what we did, was we cleaned artifacts that we had before they could be photographed and put online. But the plus is that we're actively involved in a whole digital program of recording the artifacts that we had. So not all of them were digitized, but a lot of them were.
You actually lost your own home, right?
Oh, no, I didn't lose my home, but I've lost access to my home. My house is one of the few standing in Waihikulī, but I cannot live there. So I'm displaced like a lot of other people. And I'm living in Wailuku, so I'm getting to know Wailuku, which is kind of interesting.
Don't forget to check out our friends in Waikapu. They have a very vibrant history drive going on there for sure, the work the association's been doing.
So Theo, this has given you an opportunity to move to the other island.
Yes.
In central Maui, right?
Yes, because I tended to be super, super, super focused on Lahaina. So to come,
you know,
one of
the questions that comes up, and this may not be Kuleana, but people associate it with, you know, because obviously your ears must burn a lot because of the work you've done with the foundation. People assume that yourself and the questions that revolve around the banyan tree. You know, that did it survive? Is there a way to restore it, to bring it back to life? Is that a plan being considered? Is this something that you have talked about or discussed? And do you know of what plans, if any, are being done to perhaps assess the banyan tree?
Yes, actually, I know a lot about that. So the banyan
All right.
tree, which we celebrated its 150th anniversary this year
right.
in April,
Oh,
is like a community gathering spot, but it is not the significant tree in Lahaina. The significant tree in Lahaina is ulu trees, and we have one which is also being cared for right now at the Baldwin home, right at the end of the parking lot. And there's a few more scattered throughout town, which are old banyan ulu trees. I don't know exactly their age, but that's another thing that is being cared for. So there is a whole group of people, arborists and other plant care people, that are working on working to I guess you'd say revitalize the banyan tree, the ulu tree, the other large trees like the ko trees in Lahaina. So they're injecting, they're aerating the ground, they're injecting compost tea into the ground, all organic type stuff. And the banyan tree is definitely sending out new shoots. Nothing is, it's still an intensive care unit, I guess you'd say, but it's looking promising.
That's kind of.
That's really. So the ulu, you're talking about the ulu that run along Luakini Street, those guys, right? Or did they get, or they lost those? Because I know there's several of the trees around the house. I'm just curious if those survived or not.
Well, we have the one banyan tree that was already suffering because of the drought in the parking lot of the Baldwin home. And what's interesting is that when Dr. Baldwin lived there in the 1800s, he was a prolific letter writer, and he sent a map he always tried to explain how he was living to the people, his family back in Connecticut. And so he had it, because they knew nothing about, it was a very different life, right? So he drew a whole map of the yard of the Baldwin home, and on that map, in the exact same place where the ulu tree is now, it is an ulu tree. So we can't prove it's the same tree, but we know it's an old tree, so we think it's the same tree, which would make it one of the ulu trees that was in the whole grove, the big groves.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I always thought that. It's funny because I parked my car, much to your chagrin, nearby.
You're lucky you didn't smash your windshield with a ulu.
And I you just get a sense of something from, it's like you can just feel the history there, and of that grove and the trees there, and of course the procession of the funeral and the things that happened, all throughout Lahaina and everything. One of my personal questions, one of the things that Dr. Baldwin did, or they did, was they grew grapes, right? Which was obviously not a thing you normally find in Lahaina, and that was always the coolest thing, was the grapes on the trellis there. I don't think they survived, did they? And
no, they did survive. Yes,
they did. Oh,
they are also showing growth, because I think what's happening is when the arborists are coming by and they're watering the big kukui and ko tree, the grape arbor is getting water too. Either they're putting water there, or just because it's right near there. So there's new growth. We're gonna.
Wow, that's this has been actually some really good news. Because I was a big fan of that because of the quirky history. Winley Files. He talked about the art of growing grapes in Lahaina to make wine, and I always thought that got a kick out of that, because normally, you would never be able to pull it off.
They didn't make wine, at least that we know of. They made Mrs. Baldwin made jam. The Baldwins were teetotalers, at least that's what they said.
All right. Well, that was the interpretation, I guess. It was misinterpreted.
Okay, the other.
It was a whaling town, right?
No, the other really amazing thing that happened is the benches that we've recently their memorial. In fact, your mom has one.
Yes, we got a photo that Jesse took and sent to me that really made me cheer up that it survived the fire.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
amazingly, these benches that we use ipe wood, which is a really, really hard wood, and we use that expensive, but it's really hard because to keep people from carving their initials in it. But
Yeah.
I mean, they still take marking pens and mark all over them. But anyway, we use that wood to do the benches. And when I heard about the fire, and I thought, oh no, all these people that spent a lot of money for these benches, it's all gone. But they survived. In fact, Jesse's out there today photographing. I told him photograph every bench has a plaque on it, so we'll be able to notify the people that their benches are still there.
Theo,
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I got the one he sent me of my mom surviving intact, and I was blown away because obviously the temperature of of everything around it, burning everything else, was kind of. But that's good news. I mean, it's good that they survived.
Yeah.
They're intact, and you have these other things that you would assume, given the fire, and like you said, the just totality of damage would have been gone. So, that's a message of hope, which I think I myself and I think a lot of people, it's nice to hear.
Yeah.
That these things that you'd expect wouldn't make it. One of what's this? The condition, like some of like the Lahaina Library, is it a total loss to your knowledge at this point, or? And I guess there's a reason why I asked that. But do you have any feedback on that, the condition of that structure at all?
Well, just what I've seen in photographs, it's totally gutted.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the actual what it's built out
So
of.
I bring it up because of this. It's one of the things going to be facing Lahaina is going to be there's a 300-foot new setback from building anything in that area, which has come down now from the federal government. And so there's a lot of state assets which before would have just been rebuilt. The state is seriously looking at, okay, given this, is it worth rebuilding the structure here, or do we use the opportunity to rebuild it Mauka? So that area there, before all the fire, we were working with you on trying to get this whole title issue, I guess, resolved, right? It was the land use issue with the county.
On the Mackay side, yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So, okay. So now that maybe this opens the lens to a wider question. Forgive me, everybody, if it's a little long, but if the library is gutted and the state has no plans to rebuild it because of inundation, does that now change the potential of the LRF if they were all now to be conveyed to be able to restore that area like you were doing with the Mackay before the fire started?
Yes, that's the other thing about this fire. I mean, as tragic as it is, there's also opportunities. So yes, that would be a fantastic opportunity to take the remains of the library. It's really sad to lose the library, and we hope a library can come back into Lahaina town, because a town towns need schools, towns need libraries. Towns need things, not, it's really important for a town to have those things. So,
totally.
But
That's
that area we could put back like the Hawaiian structure that was there, and fix up the brick palace. There's a lot we could do. It's a fabulous site.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we're still going to have a library. I mean, the commitment, I think, is of my colleagues and I, is like, you recognize that's what makes a town a town. That's why the totality of the fire, I explain to people, it's your whole society's been wiped out. Everything from your daycare to your school to your business to your
churches,
the place where you hang
temples.
out, and I mean, all of those, everything across the map, to your point earlier, is gone. It's completely gone. And that's the thing that I think, so to have that is really, an important thing.
Theo, it seems to me that one of the things you're talking about when you talk about these different structures is the Lahaina sense of place.
Correct.
When you talk about churches and schools and libraries, these are what made Maui, the small town Maui, these kinds of things. How do you see this now I consider you a professional in your field. I know you've worked your way up. You got dirt on your hands, okay? But how do you, as a professional now, see this necessity to rebuild this sense of place?
Well, it all starts with community planning and community involvement, and every voice needs to be heard. So this is what we did with Lahaina Bypass Now. That was a project that was 40 years of just, problems and, all kinds of anger and whatever, discontent and all that. But if you bring people together, and so I got involved after that when Lahaina Bypass Now started, and it was urgent at that point. I forget what year that was, but to actually get that road going because we were in just gridlock. So we brought the community together and discussed all the options. And not only did we talk about the bypass, it was all transportation. So as a result of Lahaina Bypass Now, we got bike paths, and we got walking paths, and we got a new bus route, all different. And we didn't get everything that we wanted, but we got a lot. But the main thing was bringing, at the end of the day, the community all wants the same thing. They really want the same thing, but it's just how you get there. And so you have to go through this process. You have to listen to everybody, and it's amazing that it truly works. You need a real trained facilitator to do that. So we did that with a Lahaina Bypass, and then I did it again on a much smaller project, but it was the Harborfront project. So we did this. We did the same thing, and again, it worked. And we had everybody in the same room, and the people that were really interested stayed. And Lahaina News was fantastic because they every week they would publish almost like the minutes of the meeting. And so the community was really informed about the whole process. And when they're, if there was something coming up they're interested in, they would show up. And we ended up with a really successful project. Nobody tried to stop it. Nobody was mad about it. Everybody was really happy.
Exactly, and that's the huge kicker. I remember the thing, and it was called a charrette.
Correct.
Had everybody from the community. Everybody was invited. All groups were encouraged because of the papers. All the ideas were spaghettified against the wall. But as the process went forward and things had to be kicked off the table for practicality and other things, people there understood why. But then they also saw nuances and elements of their other ideas still in the final plan. So to your point, it was like the last project I can remember where there was no controversy behind it when it was finally done and unveiled because of this process. And for Lahaina Town, the stakes are way greater. Because obviously there's a lot of outside forces, as we know, Theo, that have a lot of their own plans in mind for the community. And I think that's why, especially like LRF and community groups are so important to the community as a whole right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. But that's the only way it'll be successful is if.
Yeah. Do you think there should be some kind of there should be an exploration of giving the community teeth, for lack of a better word, statutorily, so that resources coming in and decisions made going out are done through this type of, Lahaina bypass lens, if you will. To ensure that what is being promised and what is being allocated, what is being planned, does actually go through the community. Or do you think there's other ideas that you would see for community accountability going forward?
I don't think I quite understand. So who would be that accountability organization or person?
Well, it would be like all the different community groups, for instance, that work together already, that we all know of. That would be basically an advisory group, that would have the ability to ensure that decisions that are made elsewhere have to run through the community.
Senator, is this what the governor is proposing? Is to create an entity that is similar to other entities that the state has, where the planning all occurs within that group, but it all has to be approved and then move to the next level so that it's controlled. Because I have heard rumors that people are already getting calls or they're already getting visits or whatever, people who want to buy the land, buy the house, and put something up there. Is this a way of kind of like tamping that down so that people because people are really shell shocked right now. This is not just a physical disaster. This is playing very heavily on people's minds, psychologically, and sometimes you're not in a position to make the best decision because you've got so much on your mind. Is this a way to kind of slow that down and make sure the community people have a chance to take a deep breath and then get involved in rebuilding their community? Is that what you're shooting for?
I haven't seen the governor's proposal at all, but it seems to be aligned with what, policy-wise of what we're shooting for, is to grant, so the community rest can, I guess, understand that there is a mechanism. Community Development Authority probably is what he's alluding to. Like they have one already called HCDA. But everything that would go through the community representatives, and the community, they have to have meetings all the time. But that aside, having meetings all the time in the community, and Steve touched upon, I think, has really been the message I've been trying to echo. That, all the decisions and the meetings at the lead of these decisions have to be open, but you have to try to have them in the community as much as possible. And I think that's the approach the small harbors in DLNR is taking, insofar as trying to work with the rebuild and the plan for both Mala and Lahaina Harbor, which they're treating separately right now because of the issues involved around them. So, that's the discussion happening now. Bringing Theo into it because, the Lahaina Restoration Foundation and the work she's done herself, she is with Lahaina Bypass now, a linchpin, if you will, one of the many community organizations that should be part of some kind of community review process. And so that's why I throw it out to you, Theo. Is this something that you think we need to explore more seriously so that there's some actual teeth for the community? That's why I use that expression.
Okay. Well, I haven't really thought about it like I'm in the the initial, phase right now of just trying to get my act together after all this.
Well, we all are. We all are.
Yeah.
And this is part of those trying to look ahead a little bit over the tsunami waves to the future one.
Yeah, but we know the wolves are at the door. We definitely know that.
Yeah,
So we definitely have to protect our town, the people that, have invested into it, and keep the sense of place. And there is the issue with the setbacks and all that stuff. So, yeah, I don't know the answer exactly to that, but we have had tremendous success doing that process, and I don't know. I think there's some name for it. The process we use.
Charlotte or Charrier.
Well, that's the guy's name. Yeah, he was just a consultant, but it is a well-known process. But it's but you have to.
Charette.
Well, that was just one of the techniques they use, but the overall planning process. But people have to understand it's a process. You don't do 3 meetings and you're done. It's a process, and it depending on the issue, depending on the community, there's no set timeline. It can take a long time to get to where you need to go. You can't. There's no shortcuts. And
no,
everybody,
not at all.
Yeah. So but it really truly works. There was one point with Lahaina Bypass Now, and we were in the middle of that week-long. I think you came to it, the week-long planning that we did at the Mala'ulolele Cultural Center. And what we did was we had all the maps on the tables, and people could come in. Anybody could come in. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, thanks to the hotels. And people could draw their ideas on these maps that we had of where the road should go, or what other little side roads we need, or whatever the bike paths, you name it. And so then when they started the discussions, and it was halfway through the week, and it was contentious. And I looked at the Jim Charlier and I said, "You better not leave me right now. You better stick around." And he goes, "Don't worry, it's going to work." And at that point in time, I did not think it was going to work. He says, "Trust me, it's going to work." And it did. By the end of the week, everybody, it had all settled down, and everybody realized to move forward, we had to do certain things. And so it was great. But I honestly thought it was just going to hell that day.
Well, no, exactly, and it worked out great. I was there with you. I saw the whole thing, and it worked. And like I said, the proof was in the pudding. Not only what was the project that happened, the only complaints we got about it when it opened and since was cut your weeds back. And right, good complaints they were.
Right.
I mean, but no, I mean, just so the point being, because everybody felt like they had a voice and they understood the end product, and it was a very deliberate, extensive, and that thing there was kind of a kind of coolly unconventional, way of getting the public involved. So that's the kind of thing we're going to need. And through that, we had all the different groups, working, sitting side by side, and we're all in it for the long haul. And I'm trying to tell my colleagues, and I use your example of Lahaina Bypass now and the work you did to them over and over again about this is the process it needs to be, but you got to give some teeth to ensure that it actually happens, because otherwise the community doesn't want to be involved in endless meetings, but decisions are still being made elsewhere, and the other real discussions are happening elsewhere.
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, thinking about that, I'm not sure why. Yeah, we actually had DOT was involved with those meetings and stuff. So the organization had the credibility or the connections or whatever it was with the state government. So
exactly, and it gives some resource support to the group
yes.
that works, like you said, having the people there to do the notes and everything, communications and everything else. So, and I'm with you. I mean, we're still in the shock of what has happened. We still have trying to get access to homes and businesses. There's still a lot of, but at the same time, as we try to leak policy, we have to. I use the analogy of a tsunami wave. We have one hitting us on top of us, but we need to look what's coming.
Yeah, there's
down
definitely
the road.
more coming. There, absolutely.
Yes, there are.
This is the beginning of
hours and hours of dialogue
yes.
with that.
Theo, just a question to you. As you go forward, what are the challenges now? What setbacks? What are you going to have to overcome for the LRF, the Restoration Foundation? You got some big tasks ahead of you, but what are some of the setbacks or challenges you're facing?
Yeah, our biggest challenge, like everybody else in town, is that we lost our income. So Lahaina Restoration had an amazing amount of earned income. If you're a nonprofit, you live a lot on donations and stuff like that. But we had earned income, so that was our parking lot and our rental income, and then we had the visitor center. So we lost it, all of it, 100% in one day, gone. So now it's zero. That line is zero. So, but I've had years of nonprofit experience working with zero. So we have to, that's our biggest challenge. But I always like to look at opportunities. So the opportunity we are getting right now is just the amazing amount of press inquiries that started the minute after that, the fire when I was still in England, and my cell phone somehow, I don't know how they got the number, but was just ringing off the hook, and I was talking to everybody all around the world, although I didn't have that much information, but they just needed to hear from somebody. But now the media is getting into the positive stories. So now it's really exciting to be able to promote Lahaina, the history and the culture of Lahaina, and what we are, what we're really all about. So that is a great opportunity they never would have paid attention to us before. And when those first calls I was getting, like from the Wall Street Journal and all this stuff, they were going, so why is Lahaina important anyway? They didn't even know. So it gave me this great opportunity to say, well, the single most important thing.
New York Times credit, at least they knew why we were important.
Yeah, the single most important thing about Lahaina is the first capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Just remember that. And then every article I've read since the fire started, everybody says that, which is pretty cool. So anyway, so it's an opportunity. There's an opportunity here that we need to absolutely take.
So you may actually have now an opportunity to reach out to a worldwide funding base.
Correct. Yes, there is the funding thing too. So we've been getting lots and lots of donations, but I see it more as a way to spread our story, spread why Lahaina is important, why Hawaii is important, why it's really all about the Hawaiian culture. And this is not a story that people had they had the surf and sand image in their mind. They didn't have this story, even though it's been out there, but it hasn't been picked up by media the way it is being picked up now.
And as when you talk about this, being able to reach out to the world, has there been any like GoFundMe or any kind of opportunities like that for? How would people make a donation to your organization?
Sure. Yeah. On our website, our website is LahainaRestoration.org. And on our website, you'll also see we have the before and afters, really dramatic pictures of the Baldwin home, the old prison, Hali Aloha, the courthouse, the before and the after. They were fabulous public buildings that were used on a regular basis for education, for culture, for, exhibits, and they need some major work. Let's put it that way.
Do you think that we should be aggressively looking at if it's possible, but I think it could be at trying to use the public infrastructure bucket of FEMA monies to, let's say, to rebuild the courthouse and some of these structures that also serve as potentially as multifaceted types of entities in the community.
Absolutely. And I just turned in the whole list the other day to Office of Economic Development about.
Well, do me a favor, shoot that over to me when you get a chance to after the file. Okay.
And then we're also working with, I'm not exactly sure the wording, the National Heritage or Historic something or other. I just got a call from a senator, a congress person, and about for that kind of funding. So
right, there is funding to support preservation or restoration in communities of historical areas. So there is a pot of money for that. Senator, we're coming up in about 3 minutes where we end this segment. I wanted to let the both of you know. Maybe we could say again how people can donate money to the Lahaina Restoration Foundation and just get Theo's final thoughts.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Donate to Lahaina Restoration, it is LahainaRestoration.org, and it's right on our website, the front page, and you can just click on the Donate Now button. And we're a 501c3, so everything is tax deductible, and 100% of that money goes directly to restoring Lahaina's sense of place, history, and all those things.
Senator, final thoughts? No, I just wanted to, I think, Theo, thank you so much for being on the show. We've worked with you on all these issues, but, to be blunt and frank, and I think, our conversation shows that, your experience in working with the community and bringing everybody's voice together to get stuff done, and the importance of the Lahaina Restoration Foundation makes it a linchpin organization, going forward. And it's so good to hear about some of the good news, of the things that were assumed to have been perhaps not with us anymore that are. And so hopefully there'll be more stories like that ahead as you continue your work.
Thank you.
And our guest today has been Theo Morrison, and with the Lahaina Restoration Foundation and any other number of organizations. If you've done anything in Lahaina, you've met Theo. And I put myself in that category as well. So thank you very much for coming in and for taking a deep breath. As we said, we're still kind of working our way through this. So we very, very much appreciate your coming in today.
Okay, thank you. My pleasure.
Senator, we have about, Gary, 4 minutes? We have 3 minutes left. Senator, is there anything you would like to talk about, maybe again mention the Ohana Resource Fair today or the Filipino Fair?
Yeah, we have those two fairs coming up. Of course, the big one for our friends in the Filipino and Hispanic communities, the one coming up on the next Saturday, not this one coming up, the one after. We'll have all these different groups available to really help those, individuals who have language challenges or members of their families who have questions. They can come and get individualized support, and that's And then, of course, we're always available on our end to be helping individuals with all the questions. There's a lot of issues we could spend time on. I look forward to covering them in the weeks ahead. But anybody with concerns of those, of course, can reach out to our office so we can help you on a one-on-one basis.
Senator, how can they contact your office?
They can contact us, again, at 808-586-6070. Our staff is there to answer your call and help you and answer your questions. And if it's not within our wheelhouse, we're more than happy to act as advocate and liaison to help you get your situation, especially when it comes to benefit questions. And we'll always give you the straight dope. I mean, if we don't know the answer, we'll tell you that, but we will work on trying to find out.
Well, thank you.
Email send McKelvey at capital.hawaii.gov, TOL, Hawaii spelled out, and our Facebook, Instagram, which is at send McKelvey.
Thank you, Senator. And be sure to tune in to Capital Connection every Wednesday at 7 a.m. right here on KAOI 1110 a.m. and its affiliated FM stations, including 95.1 FM, reaching all of West Maui and all of Maui Island. We want to say aloha and have a great day.
Aloha and stay strong, Maui.